was finally time. Silverkit and Stormkit had been waiting to be apprentices for many moons now. For those who are not aware of these two's history, let me fill you in. After what seemed to be a horrible rogue attack, both of their parents' bodies were found dead, alongside their sibling, Rusted-Kit, who was found by the Thunderpath. A ShadowClan she-cat named Haildrift immediately took the two orphans in and treated them like their own. It took a long time, but eventually the two kits began to move on with their lives and focus on becoming apprentices. And thankfully, the wait was over. Tonight, Dawnstar had called a meeting, and they both knew it was probably time. They were sitting next to their friend Bubblepaw, with Haildrift sitting nervously behind them. But first, Dawnstar had to announce one of the new warriors. Cougarpaw became Cougar Cover, and everyone in the camp cheered and called her by her new name. Next, Dawnstar spoke. "Stormkit, you have reached the age of 6 moons, and it's time for you to be apprenticed. From this day on, until you receive your warrior name, you will be known as Stormpaw. Your mentor will be Brindleshade. I hope Brindleshade will pass down all she knows on to you." Then finally, it was Silverkit's turn. She got the same speech as her brother, but her mentor was Riverhowl. And last but not least, their friend Bubblepaw had the mentor Marrowpatch. The three of them all were so excited. After the ceremony was dismissed, Silverpaw nervously approached her mentor. Hi." Riverhowl looked down to her apprentice and smiled warmly. "Hello, come sit next to me." Silverpaw nodded and shuffled over to sit next to her mentor. "Okay, have you ever had a apprentice before?" She looked up with her big green eyes as her mentor tilted her head slightly. "Not exactly, but I promise I will teach you well, Silverpaw." Silverpaw seemed satisfied with that answer and smiled. "Okay, I trust you. I just want to be really strong," she meowed loudly. "Wait, my brother!" She leaped to her paws and began to run off. "Hey, Storm! I got the best mentor!" Silverpaw was, and has always been, a very loud and energetic cat. Her brother, on the other hand, has always been a little bit more reserved and mature. "We'll see about that," Stormpaw responds. As the two siblings bicker, chatter can be heard around the clan. Little did the apprentices know that there was a war about to be started with ThunderClan. Dawnstar refused to settle anything other than with claws. Suddenly, Bubblepaw leaped in between them. "Silverpaw! Stormpaw! I can't believe it!" All the mentors watched them curiously. Silverpaw rolled her eyes. "Oh yeah, Bubblepaw." Bubblepaw didn't seem to hear or mind and continued. "We are finally apprentices! We will grow up and be leaders and deputies and," she continued excitedly. Suddenly realizing how childish she had been, she blushed out of embarrassment. "After a lot of hard work, of course." Silverpaw was already bored and spoke up. "Maybe we can all train together." Marrowpatch nodded and agreed. "It is a little crowded. Let us all go outside." "Come along, Bubblepaw," she said as she walked out of camp. "We're all gonna go on a walk! Let's go!" Silverpaw yelled before chasing after them. "Whoa, it's so cool out here," Silverpaw remarked. It had been a long time since they were outside of camp. It was snowing before, and it was nice now. Everything was green. She gracefully walked beside Riverhowl as the group of them went farther away from camp. Marrow Patch had taken them to a small pond nearby. "Water!" Bubblepaw squeaked. "Whoa!" Silverpaw couldn't help but remark. She looked around before quickly pushing Bubblepaw into the water. Unable to control herself, she started laughing and splashing at the water as Bubblepaw struggled to get back up and coughing a little. When suddenly Dawnstar approached with a huge patrol. "Come with me." "We must hurry, Dawnstar. ThunderClan is likely waiting," the deputy called out. Silverpaw watched in awe as the cats were talking back and forth, the mentors trying to explain they were out here training, but Dawnstar demanding that they join in the attack. "They will go back to camp," Dawnstar said firmly. "Cougar cover, guard the camp." The mentors looked at each other and sighed. There was no arguing with Dawnstar at this point. Marrow Patch looked at the apprentices. "Back to camp, now." Silverpaw glared. "Why?" But before she could say anything else, she was shot a very angry glance. "Fine, we'll go back," Silverpaw said, feeling defeated. She was tempted to sneak off, but Bubblepaw was right there. It wouldn't be easy to lose someone as clingy, so the two of them headed back to camp. During the trip, Bubblepaw spoke up. "Where is Storm, anyway?" Silverpaw stopped for a moment. "Not sure. I haven't seen him since the ceremony." Probably back at camp, honestly." Silverpaw nodded. "Let's go!" And the two of them ran off. Back at camp, she zoomed past Cougar Cover to find Stormpaw just kind of sitting. "Stormpaw, I was worried," she said. "I'm all right," Stormpaw said, tilting his head. "Dawnstar came, and everyone left. They're going to war." Suddenly, Haildrift came running over. "Stormpaw! Silverpaw!" "Oh, hi, Haildrift. We're okay," Silverpaw responded, not wanting her foster mother to worry. Bubblepaw came over, out of breath, and flopped down. "I lost you," she mewed. "It's not my fault you have short legs," Silverpaw responded. Another apprentice, Volpaw, joined in on the conversation as Brindleshade and Haildrift watched over the apprentices. "Silverpaw, Stormpaw, Volpaw, I know a good game to play," Bubblepaw spoke up. Silverpaw sighed and stood up, just as Stormpaw did. "Your games are never that fun." "Come on," Bubblepaw insisted. She laughed and followed Bubblepaw over to the Elder's Den. "No, this one's the best." A nervous Haildrift walked over and watched them, just as Volpaw spoke up. "Better not be a kick game," he snorted. However, Silverpaw noticed her brother sneaking out of camp, and she wasn't about to let him do that alone, so she bolted for the exit. She did her best to keep her belly to the ground and follow him. Brindleshade also followed, but she didn't think that either of them saw her. Finding a nice bush, she laid down and listened to the conversation. It didn't take long for Volpaw and Bubblepaw to find her, but thankfully they just quietly stayed in the bush next to her. "Shh, I'm listening," she said to them both. Brindleshade finally spoke up. "You shouldn't wander off on your own." "Sorry, I just needed to get some air," Stormpaw responded. Volpaw and Bubblepaw were bickering about something, but Silverpaw decided to just ignore them, when suddenly Haildrift spotted them and smiled. She wouldn't give away their secret. She was a cool mom. Brindleshade looked down at her apprentice and sighed. That's fine, but with all that's going on between the clans right now, it's not really safe. Stormpaw simply looked at the ground, not responding. It seemed like there was something on his mind. His eyes finally looked up off the ground and over to the road that laid beyond the forest.
Fight? Yes, please, Bubblepaw meowed. Bubblepaw, blah, blah, blah. Shh.
Silverpaw put a paw over Bubblepaw's mouth. Have you heard of a cat named Mason? Stormpaw finally spoke. The mentor's ears perked up, glancing over at her apprentice. Heard some things. Why? Silverpaw dug her claws into the dirt. They had promised they would never say that name again. She continued to listen. He killed our mother, Stormpaw said. Silverpaw saw him do it. Silverpaw leaped out of the bush. No, I didn't! Stormpaw, hush! And when I'm a warrior, I'm going to kill him for what? Stormpaw stopped as his sister approached him. Yes, you did, Stormpaw demanded. No, it was just a random rogue, she hissed. Volpaw and Bubblepaw slowly left the bush to see what was happening. Hildreth also realized that the two were fighting and quickly came over, concerned. Stormpaw began to speak. And stopped talking. Besides, that rogue is gone now anyways. We never saw him again. Brindleshade was a little startled and frowned, looking down at the young Stormpaw. Warriors do not need to kill to win. If you kill him, you will be no better than he is. All the apprentices began to talk amongst each other as Stormpaw just quietly turned and walked away. Stormpaw, Brindleshade said softly under her breath and took off after her apprentice. The cats tried to come back to her, but she hissed, "Leave me alone!" Running away from them, she bumped into her mentor. Hey, River Howl, how is the fight? River Howl sighed as Silverpaw approached her. It was bloody. I'm glad you weren't there. Silverpaw fiddled with a blade of grass. Did we win? Her mentor nodded, just as they could hear yowls from their clanmates that there was a meeting. They both managed to make it back on time, but Dawnstar was nowhere to be seen. It was announced that Dawnstar had lost his last life in the battle, but they had won. Marrowpatch would now become Marrowstar and lead ShadowClan. After the meeting was dismissed, she quickly trotted over to the apprentice den, feeling sleepy. She spotted her brother curled up on a nest. Stormpaw, are you asleep? No, he eventually grumbled. Then why did you have to talk about him today? Stormpaw just lay there in silence, not responding and staring into his paws. Silverpaw hissed under her breath, getting up and pawing at him rather hard. Wake up! She stood on top of him, not moving until he acknowledged her. When suddenly Bubblepaw and Marrowstar entered the apprentice den, she shook her pelt just as Stormpaw leaped up. I'm awake. The leader looked over at them with a worried expression. I didn't see you in camp when I got back. She was mostly looking at Stormpaw, her eyes even maybe accusing. Stormpaw was sleeping, and I was at your meeting, Silverpaw quickly responded to defend her brother. Immediately after, another warrior entered. Maristar, it's important. Maristar seemed to be happy enough with that answer, and she turned to speak to her apprentice. Silverpaw was looking around all of this commotion in the apprentice den, just as she heard her brother mumble something. I'm gonna kill him one day. Yeah, right. Whatever, just go back to sleep, she hisses as she leaves the den. She slips right out of camp and just doesn't stop walking. Her walks turn into runs. Finally, she finds the place she's looking for. Beyond the thunder path is a beautifully green, lush forest. Leaping up onto a old stump, she lays down and just listens to all the sounds of the forest. Everything was quiet. When suddenly, loud footsteps could be heard approaching. They stop about a fox length away from the stump. A large, dark-coated, muscular Tom stares. Hello, Silverpaw, he says, leaping up onto the stump. Dad! Silverpaw mews, running over and pushing her forehead into his chest. He smiles at his daughter, curling his tail around her. It's been so long. I thought you would never come back. It's good to see you. How is ShadowClan? The Tom asks. We're doing okay. We're fighting with ThunderClan, though. Oh, Mason asks. And Stormpaw is acting all weird. Weird? How? Well, she began to mumble nervously. He what, Silverpaw? Mason asks. He mentioned you to his mentor. We're apprentices now. Mason's stern face broke into a gentle smile. That's all right. I told him to shut up, but he got mad at me, Silverpaw sighs. Hey, it's okay, Silverpaw. I can handle a few ShadowClan cats if they come after me. He couldn't help but chuckle, nuzzling her reassuringly. Okay, I just don't want to lose any more parents. You're all I have. Small teardrops began to fall down her face as she pushed her head more into Mason's fur. There was another bit of silence. Finally, he spoke. You know why I had to kill your mother, right? Silverpaw froze. I know. She lied, right? And lying is really bad. Yes, the Tom spoke. You never want to lie to the ones you love. Mason nodded. She lied to me and to you. To everyone, Silverpaw responded. That's right, Mason smiled. It's just Stormpaw doesn't see it that way. I want to tell him that you still love us, but I know he will just be mad. That's all right, Silverpaw. Not everyone sees things the same.
Yeah, too bad for him, but that just means we can keep hanging out without Stinky Stormpaw.
Mason simply smiled and looked down at his daughter. I want to be big and strong, just like you. One day you will, he reassured her.
Really? You promise?
She asked, looking up at him with her big green eyes. Of course. I can even train you. I'll be your secret mentor, he explained.
Really? I would love that. Riverhowl is okay, but you're way stronger.
You may be my daughter, but don't expect me to go easy on you.
Don't worry, I won't go easy on you either. I'm strong.
She gently begins to claw at the log in an attempt to show how strong she is. Oh, I bet that would have hurt a cat, he smirked. I should head back, Silverpaw frowned, not wanting to leave. Everyone will be worried about me. Be careful crossing the thunder path. Of course, I'm super fast. Tomorrow, I'll be here again, okay? Of course. She nuzzles Mason before leaping off and heading back to camp. Silverpaw managed to sneak back into the camp, no problem. She spotted Vole. Hey, Volepaw.
Yeah?
The apprentice asked. Have you seen Bubblepaw or Stormpaw around? It was then when Sparrowpaw spat out a moss ball. Stop bothering Volepaw, Silverpaw, he snapped at her. Volepaw rolled his eyes. No. Silverpaw glared at both of them. She hisses at Sparrow and turns to sulk off. She wasn't in the mood to deal with those two mouse brains. Unfortunately, Marrowstar held another meeting, and she had to go back out with everybody. Nothing really important happened, but she couldn't help but notice that Volepaw and Sparrowpaw were picking on another apprentice. Finally, she walked over.
Knock it off! Funny you'd step in, Volepaw sneered. Nobody asked you, Silverpaw, Sparrowpaw snapped. What is that supposed to mean? She hissed at Volepaw.
Some of the other apprentices began to join and try to calm Silverpaw down, but Sparrowpaw wouldn't stop. Mind your own business, why don't you? Finally, something in her just snapped, and she tackled Sparrowpaw. Just as Stormpaw walked up, what's going on? Stormpaw simply watched as Silverpaw and Sparrowpaw were clawing and hissing at each other, fighting in the middle of camp. Within a few moments, Marrowstar was walking over. She grabbed Silverpaw by the scruff and pulled her off. That's enough! She glared at Stormpaw. He didn't even try to help her. Marrowstar bared her fangs towards the young cats. I want everyone in the apprentice den, now.
I'll never be in a den with Sparrowpaw, Silverpaw hisses.
Fine. Stormpaw, Silverpaw, my den. Silverpaw sighs as she follows Marrowstar into the leader's den, soon after her brother Stormpaw approaching. What was that? Marrowstar spoke, settling into her own nest. Silverpaw simply looked away. After a weird, awkward silence, she mumbled, Nothing. Stormpaw was the next to speak. Silverpaw, what's wrong with you? Nothing! Why does everyone keep saying that? She hisses. You're acting so Weird, Stormpaw responds. No, I'm not! And what about you? Maristar glared at Stormpaw. Your mentor has been reporting you missing multiple times. Silverpaw's ears perked up. Where had Stormpaw been running off to? But she quickly focused back on what was happening. I'm sorry, Stormpaw apologized. Silverpaw simply stayed silent. Maristar continued to speak with the two apprentices, threatening that their warrior ceremony could be delayed if they don't mature. Stormpaw finally spoke up. Maristar, can I go? Silverpaw's ears were burning. She was furious on the inside. Who needed stupid clan or a stupid leader? Then I don't want to see it again. I want both of you working with your mentors individually for the next few days. Okay, Silverpaw responded, just wanting this to be over with already. The leader sighed. Take some time for yourselves, and for StarClan's sake, come to me if something is wrong, okay? Now go on, she finally spoke as the two apprentices almost ran out of there. Silverpaw headed straight for the apprentice's den. She was exhausted, but Stormpaw went to go find his mentor. Brindleshade? Sorry about earlier. It's alright. Just make sure you tell me next time you go out of camp. Stormpaw nodded and quickly turned to the apprentice den himself, curling up as all of the apprentices were finally calm for once. You could hear little mews and snores as they slept. Tonight seemed like any other night. Stormpaw had just gotten back from a night patrol with his mentor Brindleshade. She was deputy now. And with New Leaf in full swing, it was raining almost every other day, and tonight was no different. But thankfully he laid asleep, quiet and not wet. As he started to dream, he dreamt up his mother, Littlesprout, who he wondered what she was doing right now and hoping that she was thinking about him. When suddenly he felt like he woke up, but his body was still sleeping, and everything turned white. Once his vision began to become less blurry, he sat up and looked around confused. You see Littlesprout smile and walk over to her son just as he speaks. What is this place? Mother? He asks, looking directly at her. She nods. This is StarClan. I know we have only met in your dreams, but... She looked down for a moment sadly, but quickly smiled and looked back up at him. I wanted to bring you here. I missed you, Stormpaw. The young cat quickly leaped up and ran over to her. Mom, I missed you so much. After a few moments, he sat down and tilted his head. So, do you always see us? He asked. Not always, but sometimes they let me peek down. Her ears quickly perked up. You and your sister have been apprentices for quite some time now, haven't you? His ears perked up. Really? I hope you have been seeing my skills. My mentor has been training me. He lifts his paw, flexing it. He quickly looked down and more serious. Oh yeah, my sister. Huh? What's wrong with Silverpaw? She asked. Well, She's been acting off. I can't put my paw on it, but something's up. Littlesprout frowned. Oh, that would explain why it's been impossible to reach her in a vision. I'm really worried, Mom. I don't like how she's been acting. Littlesprout looked over at her son. She wanted to tell him, but it felt it wasn't the time yet. I'm sure she's just growing up. It's times like this that can be hard for a young cat. Possibly. Hopefully she'll change back into her normal hyper self soon. Littlesprout figured maybe it was best to change the subject. Badger Claw sends his love. He wants to see you so bad. But ShadowClan has all of these rules and such. Stormpaw simply lowered his ears. Oh. The mother and son spoke back and forth, talking about ShadowClan and cats that she missed dearly, when suddenly she felt her body starting to fade. My time seems to be up with you, but please. Stormpaw's ears twitched, his heart pounding. She looked into his eyes. You have already made both of us so proud, I promise. Be careful, okay? I love you so much. All right. I'll be careful, I promise, he said, frowning as he buried his face in his mother's neck. He would miss her so much. Goodbye, Mama. His heart ached. He couldn't bear for her to leave again. She could feel tears running down her face, but she quickly looked around before leaning down and whispering into his ear. He is back. Stormpaw's eyes widen. What? Who? He asks, but Littlesprout's already almost completely gone. Suddenly he hears an echoing voice in his ear. Mason. He whips his body around to try to find his mother again, but his body collapses as he returns back to the Apprentice den. By the time morning arrived, the rain had finally stopped. Mirrowstar leaped up onto her rock and called a clan meeting. Cats came out of dens and, if they were nearby, returned from hunting. ShadowClan had been doing very well under Mirrowstar. There were many cats in the clan, and lots of senior experienced warriors, as well as apprentices and kits. Deadheart, the medicine cat, was very experienced, and they almost never lost any cats from battle. Stormpaw and Bubblepaw were already awake when Silverpaw leaped to her feet. Oh, we're late! The 3 older apprentices knew what time it was, and all leaped out of the apprentice den. Just as they made it to the clearing, they could hear Mirrowstar speak. Today is a special day for some of our older apprentices. They managed to find a nice place up front to sit and looked up at their leader. Mirrowstar's gaze rested on the 3 apprentices sitting close together. Stormpaw, step forward, please. The black and white Tom's eyes lit up as he proudly stepped forward. Stormpaw, you have gained maturity and strength in your apprenticeship. Do you promise to be loyal to ShadowClan as a warrior? He spoke up loudly, fluffing out his chest. I'll fight and hunt for my clan until the end of my days, Mirrowstar. From this moment on, you will be known as Stormheart. Overcome with joy and pride, Stormheart turned around and smiled at his sister and friend, sitting back next to them. The clan all erupted with cheer. Stormheart! Stormheart! Next it was Bubblepaw's turn. She became Bubble Leap. Bubbly, bubbly, bubbly could be heard echoing around camp. Then silence. Marrowstar spoke. Silverpaw, please step forward. It was finally time. She was a bit nervous, but walked up. Silverpaw, you have worked long and hard to earn your place as a warrior in ShadowClan. Do you swear your loyalty to your clanmates for the rest of your days? Silverpaw simply nodded and spoke. Yes! Marrowstar nodded and continued. From this moment on, you will be known as Silverfern. May StarClan light your path. The meeting was over shortly after, and everything else was pretty uneventful. Marrowstar had tasked them to go on a nightly border patrol as vigil, and said that they could talk to each other, just make sure everything looked okay. Once the patrol was almost over, they decided to stop by the pond and see if they could find some frogs to bring back for fresh kill. Silverpaw had picked up on some strange rogue scents as they walked, but it seemed like Stormheart and Bubbly didn't pick up on them, so she didn't mention it. Before long, they found the pond and began to hunt. Her ear quickly flicked as she looked around. She thought she saw Mason? Quickly standing to her paws, she looked at her brother and friend. I'll be right back, guys. Taking off, she began to follow the shadowy figure. It definitely looked like Mason, but it was hard to tell. It was so dark out. It felt like she had been walking all night. They didn't speak to each other. Mason seemed very concentrated on where he was going. The sky began to turn dark and the trees disappeared. Without saying a word, he crawled into a hole underneath a bush, seemingly vanishing. She quickly did the same and appeared on the other side. The trees began to take on an eerie reddish glow, and she made sure to keep up with her father. Looking down as the river that flowed through this land was black. Whoa. I hope you can swim, he chuckled before slowly stepping into the water, his fur almost blending in. Silverfern followed after him, her body slowly being covered by the water. Where are we? Mason stayed silent and simply slipped away into the darkness. She lost him for a moment, but then quickly found him sitting atop a rock. Welcome to the dark forest, he booms. Whoa, I have heard stories. She sat next to her father and looked up at him. Do you live here? Mason took a few moments to respond and simply nodded. Sometimes. She looks away for a moment and then back up at Mason. I see. They say that bad cats come here after they die. Not exactly. Only cats deemed unworthy by StarClan, he explained. Oh, that seems unfair. It is. Silverfern stayed quiet for a moment, thinking. This was a lot to take in. Eventually, Mason broke the silence. You could always stay here, you know, with me. Her ears perked up. Really? But then slowly lowered as he responded, yes. I mean, that would be nice, but I'm finally a warrior, and Bubble and Stormheart. She thought for a moment. Can I think about it? She asked, looking up at her father. Of course, he said calmly.
Okay, thanks. We've been busy with rogue attacks. I'll find time to think it over soon.
Mason simply nodded as she stood to her paws. How is your brother? Mason asked.
Good. Probably freaking out wondering where I am, she chuckled. I sorta ran off while hanging out with him.
You should get back then, Mason responds.
Yeah, she frowns. I'll see you soon, though.
She quickly gives her father a nuzzle before leaping off, remembering the direction she came. Now get going, he commanded as he slowly faded into the darkness.
On the way back, it began to rain and caused her to take a little longer, but eventually she made it back the next morning, right as another meeting was starting. She quickly squeezed in between Stormheart and Bubble Leap, just as Marrowstar began to speak. Rogues have tried to take our camp. Now we will show what it means to mess with ShadowClan, she hissed, and below her was a very beat-up, strange rogue. Is that a rogue? Stormheart said, as the rain began to pour down harder. Once the clan quieted, she continued. These rogues, dragging one forward, left behind by their so-called allies, will be our prisoners. Silverfern noticed that Bubbleleap had scooted closer to her. She gently wrapped her tail around her comfortingly. This was getting scary. Suddenly, Marrowstar tossed one of the rogues off of the high rock. They landed with a loud thud. There were gasps and hisses coming from the clan. Silverfern, Bubbleleap, Stormheart, you will go on patrol and search for these rogues' camp. Stealth only. Once we figure out where they all are, we will attack. The three young warriors all looked at each other. This seemed like a big mission for them, but Marrowstar probably wanted more of the experienced warriors in camp to protect it, so they all quickly turned and headed out of camp. The journey was not terribly long, but it was wet and kind of made everything miserable. But eventually they made it into WindClan territory and knew that the barn was somewhere around here. As they all got closer, they began to pick up stronger and stronger rogue scents. This is definitely where they were staying. The three of them stood on a fairly tall rock so they could see over the fence. Here we are, Stormheart said. This rain, Bubbleleap complained. Silverfern looked around. I don't see any, but I sure do scent them. They're probably all hiding inside. Stormheart nodded. Probably so. Well, Marrowstar said stealth, so just a quick look around? Yeah, that bush over there. Come on, guys. Sounds good, she says, as she follows them and leaps over the bush, when immediately they were confronted by a large rogue. Soot crept from her cover, sauntering up towards the young warriors. And what do we have here? Bubbleleap, Stormheart, and Silverfern all crouched down together underneath the bush, frozen. Bubbleleap was the first to speak. When suddenly Stormheart hissed, Go, go, go! And the three of them exploded out of the bush. Silverfern quickly darted off in the first direction she saw, figuring she could probably figure out a way to get out of here, when suddenly she was jumped on by another rogue. Ah! She got me! Silverfern yowled as this rogue, who was named Rabbit, unsheathed her claws, pressing down on Silverfern. Soot came running around the corner, chasing after Stormheart, who stopped when he saw what was happening to his sister. Get off of her! But there was nothing Stormheart could do, because immediately Soot dug her claws into Stormheart's shoulders, throwing him to the ground. Bubble Leap was the last warrior not to be pinned down, and she tried to fight, but she was no match for two grown rogues. Soot couldn't help but let out a chuckle. "You'll just make your situation a lot worse. Don't get feisty now." "Or maybe he can go bye-bye," she said, tapping a claw on Stormheart's skull. "Please, just let us go," Silverfern begged. While Bubble Leap was distracted, the rogue named Rabbit leaned over and swiped at her head, attempting to knock her down. "The boss will love you. Now let's get into the barn," she said, dragging Stormheart's body towards the barn. Silverfern slowly wobbled to her feet as Soot and Storm were arguing a few fox lengths away. She carefully and slowly began to follow them, brushing up against Bubble Leap's pelt as she walked by and whispered, "It'll be okay, I promise." The group of them made it into the barn where, at least it was dry. Soot led them up to the top of the barn, where she forced them all three into a corner. "I'm going to need some names." She leaned forward towards Stormheart, her rotting breath on his ears. "We're just young warriors. We're no good to you," he sneered. "I just asked you, rat brain." "I'm Leap," Leappaw lied. Stormheart grumbled. Fine. I'm Hurricane Hiss," he said, trying to sound as convincing as possible. But Silverfern just simply said, "I'm Silverfern. Let us go." She was hoping that if Mason had something to do with these rogues, maybe they would just let her go. There was a lot of back and forth arguing and hissing. Soot stalked over to Bubble Leap. "You stink of ShadowClan. What is your other name?" Rabbit, who was pacing back and forth, was scratching and clawing at the floorboards, letting out a low snarl. Eventually, Soot had had enough. "Oh, and you have a mouth on you," she hissed, clearly towards Stormheart. "Rabbit, why don't you pull him aside? We don't want anyone making plans." Rabbit let out a snarl, walking over and picking up Storm by the scruff, dragging him away. "Be safe, Silver Bubble," he frowned before being dragged off. Silverfern wanted to get up and fight, but she knew it was pointless. Suddenly, Sootstar turned around. "I'm grabbing a snack. Don't go anywhere. I have my eyes on you." After Rabbit tossed Storm into the corner, she smirked sinisterly. "You do nothing but hiss. Did your clan not teach you how to fight?" "Of course I can fight. I'm a warrior." His fur bristled. "And if I could, I would," he glared at the she-cat. "You look nothing more than an apprentice." She couldn't help but laugh. "I'm a young warrior," he snapped back, trying to defend himself. "But I know how to fight. And one day, I'll prove that to you. You'll see." "Oh, really? The way you act, you'll be dead before you can even prove anything." He sighed. "You can hurt me. Just don't you dare hurt my sister or Bubble." Silverfern couldn't help but listen to the argument her brother was having with that rogue, but at least it seemed like they weren't fighting yet, so she would stay put.
We just need to stay calm and wait, she said, nuzzling Bubble Leap. I hope everyone at camp is okay too. I am just happy you're okay, she meowed and nuzzled Silverfern back. I'm sure everyone at camp is okay. We will get through this together, I promise. Bubble Leap purred. If you say so. Silverfern was honestly exhausted, and she simply laid down and curled up, an ear still open and listening in case she needed to fight, but for now she would try to get some rest. Bubble Leap had decided to stay awake and stared longingly at the open barn door as she watched as a new cat appeared. A young, almost all-white she-cat carefully came up to the second floor and sat next to Soot. Soot was bent over, half chewing on a rat, picking at it with mild disappointment. Huh? Oh, North, you're back. Hello, Soot. I was told you needed me, miss. Soot scoffed. I guess I could put you to use. She sat up, tilting her head far to the side. Go take Rabbit's job. She might be going soft on him. Thank you. You won't regret it. I can handle it, she purred, excited to finally be old enough to help. Leaping to her paws, she slowly made her way over to where Rabbit was holding one of the prisoners. As North approached, she heard a loud thump and the sound of hissing. Turning the corner, she could tell that both cats had been fighting from the blood. Rabbit! Hey! She tried to quickly get her fellow rogue's attention. Rabbit grumbled and begrudgingly let go of the warrior. As Stormheart moved away, she hissed, I'm not finished yet. North quickly stood in between them. Soot said that you need to go take a break, and I'll watch him for now. Orders. Now, if it was me, I would let you stay, but you know how Soot gets. Fine, she said, giving Stormheart a sly smirk before padding off. North, now relieved, turned around to face this mysterious warrior. Are you okay? Hi, Stormheart said, somewhat startled. Yeah, thanks. He glanced away. No problem. She has a bit of a temper, but means well. Sometimes, North chuckled. All that came out of Stormheart's mouth was, Who are you? I'm North. And you? That's a pretty name. I'm Stormheart, a newly made warrior. Oh, a warrior, huh? She couldn't help but blushing slightly. Let me guess, the clan that lives near frogs? How could you tell? He looked surprised. I've been learning all about the enemy clans. One lesson was that one of the clans smells of mud and frogs. The proper name is ShadowClan, but yeah, I guess you could say that. Oh, ShadowClan. The leader around here don't like teaching us the real names. Well, we don't all smell like mud and frogs. He looked away, embarrassed. North immediately picked up on his embarrassment. Well, not like you. Well, a little, but it's not a bad thing, she chuckled. Stormheart couldn't help but chuckle back. I guess so. So, I've been hearing a lot about this leader. Yes, We're not allowed to say his name, but he is a large black cat. Stormheart's eyes widened. Could it be? But the thought was quickly interrupted. So, how long you here for? Thinking about joining? Lost or... The older rogues didn't really keep her informed, unfortunately. Oh, well, funny story, he smirked. Oh? North asked. We got captured. My sister and our friend is here as well. I hope they're all right. Oh, that makes sense. The older cats never tell me anything. But don't worry, I saw them when I arrived. They're sleeping together, nice and safe. I'm more worried about you. She looked over his open wound. Let me patch that up for you. Stay here. Stormheart tried to interject. You don't have to... But she was already gone. She knew exactly where all of the cobwebs were in the barn, so it only took her a few moments to go over, grab some, and head back. Stormheart gulped, glancing at her again. Really, you don't have to. But she was already laying down next to him, examining his paw. It's no problem. My mom taught me all about herbs. She carefully leaned down and tended to his wounds. She couldn't help but looking up at him every few moments and then quickly refocusing on the task at hand. Thankfully, it wasn't very deep. It would recover soon. Once she was done, she sat next to Stormheart. He asked her a question. So, did you grow up here, or... Yes, I was born here. My mother still lives here. I'm not sure who my father is, though. I was told he died when I was only a kid. I bet your mother is beautiful. That would explain your looks. I mean, you know, he said, trying to cover himself. Thanks. She's our grumpy medicine cat, and pretty old now, but I appreciate the compliment. She blushed. Since they were both pretty much stuck here, they decided to lay down and chat for the rest of the night. The rain never did stop. It only got worse and more windy as it became early morning. Back in ShadowClan, we can see that Marrowstar is on top of the Leader's Rock, about to hold a meeting. Cats of ShadowClan, gather for a clan meeting! Most of the cats were sleeping in their semi-dry dens when they heard Marrowstar's call. They begrudgingly came out, confused. Once most of the cats were sitting in the clearing, looking up, Marrowstar continued. Our young warriors are missing. We will be going across WindClan territory to search for them. We are ready for war if it should come to that. Most of the clan was fairly excited about war, while some questioned. Brindleshade and I will take the lead. Everyone excluding queens and kits and young apprentices will be coming. Taking a few moments to catch her breath before continuing. No excuses. The sun slowly could be seen creeping into existence as Marrowstar leaped off the high rock. ShadowClan, move out, she said, as the horde of cats began to follow her. The rain had caused all of the land around to be so muddy, some cats slipping and covered in mud, but that didn't stop any of them. Marrowstar continued without hesitation, leading all of the warriors to the barn. WindClan knew better than to mess with Marrowstar when she was angry. The group of cats all gathered together before they entered into the barn, taking the rogues completely by surprise. And then chaos ensued. each side fighting with all of their might, blood slowly beginning to cover the cobblestone, just as Silverfern woke up. Quickly, she jumped to her paws. Bubblebeep! Bubblebeep! She nudged. Wake up! ShadowClan is here! We have to go! Bubblebeep's ears perked up at the sound of fighting. Oh, let's go! She meowed quickly, following after Silverfern. The two started heading over to the corner where Stormheart was, but paused for a moment, looking down outside of the barn and just to see what chaos was ensuing. Now facing her brother, she was confused about where the other cat went, but assumed that she must have ran down to join the fight when it started. Catching her breath for a moment before speaking, outside is crazy. We need to get back to camp. Bubblebeep also added, Stormheart, let's go! Quickly! Huh? Oh, all right, Stormheart said, still trying to wake up, the three of them bravely dashing into the storm. Silverfern managed to dodge the fighting cats, running right next to Bubblebeep, making sure she was still there. But turning around, she realized that she lost Stormheart. Where did he go? Stormheart! Stormheart! She yelled, finally locking eyes with her brother, but he immediately began to look around. What was he looking for? Finally, Stormheart spoke up. Keep going, Silverfern. I'll meet up with you. Go! She was frustrated, but nodded. Fine! Silverfern and Bubblebeep began running back to camp. They weren't sure if the rest of the clan knew about this battle and needed to go warn them. Returning back to the fight scene, you can see North looking around. She suddenly locked eyes with Stormheart when she felt a large cat knock her to the ground. It was Marrowstar. North could feel her body crumble onto the cold, wet cobblestone as Stormheart yelled in the background, No! Don't hurt her! A black rogue with white speckles sneered, Come on, North, get up. She wasn't a very good fighter, and most of the rogues would tease her about it. She tried to get up, but couldn't kick off the large cat. It was hard to see with how hard the rain was coming down, but she spotted Stormheart clawing at his leader. Please, Clan Cat, I don't want to fight, she pleaded. Marrowstar, stop! She is a good rogue, I promise! Suddenly, Marrowstar was attacked by a rogue from behind, causing her to let go of North just long enough for her to run, taking a few steps before she realizes Storm isn't running. Come on, Stormheart, she pleaded as she dashed behind a hay bale. She stood there, trying to catch her breath for a moment. Thankfully, she wasn't bleeding. Thank you for saving me. I'm so sorry that my leader pinned you. It's all right. I owe you my life. No, he shook his head. I just paid you back for saving me. Oh, of course. You are the nicest clan cat I have ever met. There was a few seconds of silence as they both blushed, and then Stormheart spoke. North? Do you wanna join ShadowClan after this? We can run back to camp. We'll join my sister and Bubblebeep. North looked down, frowning. Well, as much as I would love to, I need to take care of my mother here. She is old and I love her very much. I could never get her to join as well, though. But maybe we could still see each other? Stormpaw was obviously disappointed, but smiled and nodded. Of course, I would like that. I'll never forget you, North. I would like that as well. I'll never forget you, she says, gently nuzzling him as he nuzzles back. After a few more moments, the two cats had decided to try to help calm everyone down. Thankfully, most of the cats had already gone back to where they came from. Immediately, Stormheart noticed a large black Tom sitting atop crates. He couldn't believe his eyes and continued to walk closer. The rain was pouring down so hard, but this cat just smiled at him and leaped away. Stormheart knew who it was. It was Mason. Adrenaline took over his body as he began to follow his father. North's eyes widened as Stormheart seemed to know her leader. Where was he going? She took a few steps forward, thinking about chasing after him, when her mother, Wisteria, bounded forward. You can't follow him, little one. She fluffed up. I'm not little anymore. I need to make sure Stormheart is okay. I know, she nuzzled North, but you have to defend your group. I'm sure Mason has a plan for him. That's what I'm worried about, she sighed. What if I never see him again? No, I have never been wrong about my advice before, right? The mother asked, offering a reassuring smile. You're right. Let's get inside. The fight seems to be over, and I'm freezing. The mother and daughter both quickly walked back into the barn. Even though it should be midday, the sky is still black and angry as Stormheart continues to chase Mason. As they were both jumping over a rock, Mason slipped in the mud, tumbling to the ground, letting Stormheart have enough time to catch up to him, the younger Tom's tail lashing back and forth. I've been waiting forever for this day. Mason quickly sprung to his feet and faced his son. And what would your sister think about this? Killing your... But he was cut off. Stormheart immediately leaped forward and clawed at his face. You killed my mother! He yowled, swiping again. Mason this time getting hit pretty bad, yowling in pain. Ugh! As he stumbled backwards. Blood was now dripping from Mason's face. Now, I'm going to end your reign, Stormheart yowled. The father remained silent for a moment. Stormheart just glared, confused. Within a flash, Mason lunged at Stormheart, knocking him to the ground. You're dead! Unfortunately, Stormheart was no match for such a strong Tom, and he fell, gasping for air. Mason stood over him, smiling, ready to bite into his throat. When suddenly, a large, yellow glowing cat landed from out of nowhere. It was Badgerclaw. He swiped at Mason's eyes in an attempt to at least temporarily blind him. While normally Badgerclaw was not a violent cat, being able to seek revenge on his own murderer felt just, and he was also protecting his son. Mason laid on the ground, confused and dazed, as Stormheart rose to his paws. Badgerclaw? The StarClan cat continued to fight, his vision blurred. He felt dizzy, but he kept attacking Mason. Mason couldn't move for a few moments, trying to catch his own breath before kicking Badgerclaw away and off of him. Don't ever mess with my son, he growled, landing another harsh blow. Mason managed to get up for a few moments, but immediately Stormheart was leaping at him. Badgerclaw also refused to let up, both of the cats now ganging up on Mason, whose blood continued to ooze from the claw marks. For a moment, Mason managed to kick Badgerclaw and get him down, but Stormheart was quickly on top of Mason, raking his claws down his back. "Get off of him!" he said, as Badgerclaw weakly managed to pull himself up. Mason laid there, struggling to break free, but both cats were standing on him, his eyes widening with fear for the first time in his life. Stormheart yelled, "Doesn't this look familiar? Now look who's scared!" "Let go of me!" Mason yelled back. "A warrior doesn't need to kill to win, but Mason is a threat to us," Badgerclaw growled. "So what must be done will be done," he meowed, giving Stormheart space to take the final blow. "I am ending your life, just like you ended my mother's," Stormheart yowled and deeply slashed into Mason's throat one final time. A sound could be heard coming from Mason. It sounded like a plea, but was cut off, his head just dropping to the side. Stormheart backed away, blood dripping down his paw. Thankfully, at least the heavy rain seemed to wash some of it off. "He's gone," Badgerclaw panted, out of breath. He quickly also cleaned his starry pelt, then mewed. "Good job, Stormheart." Thank you, Badgerclaw." Casually stepping over Mason's body, Badgerclaw approached Stormheart. I have to go back to StarClan, but I will continue to watch over you from above," he purred and licked the top of his son's head. The young warrior purred. "Tell Littlesprout I did it." Badgerclaw quickly nodded before disappearing into the fog as the scene begins to fade to white.